Hello, greetings everyone. So this is a wonderful lesson that we are starting. So this is the lymphatic system. I remember telling you to say that whenever we are talking about transport, so this is just like a background. So whenever we are talking about transport in animals, so I just want to take you back to what I told you. I told you that transport in animals, specifically mammals, happen in two ways. There is the first one that we get to call the blood secretory system. So the first one we get to call it what? Blood secretory system. So secretory what? Secretory system, which is also known as the vaso. We get to call it the vascular system, cardiovascular system. We get to call it the cardiovascular system. And I also told you that we also have what we get to call the lymphatic. We call it the lymphatic what? The lymphatic system. So all these get to talk about the movement or the transport in what? Animals. They are in two types. So in this particular lesson, we are going to look at what we call the lymphatic system. This is a wonderful system that I want you to know, that I want you to understand. You discover that the lymphatic system is just the transport, is a transport and defense system that is made of the following components. So this is just what we say is a what? This is a what? This is a transport. So we say this is a transport and the defense. So transport and a defense system. So transport and defense system that is made up. It is made up of the following. Made up of the what? Of the following components that I'm going to discuss with you. Following components. I guess you are able to follow me clearly. So previously, we looked at the blood disorders, where I told you that there is a blood disorder that is called sickle cell anemia, where red blood cells get to change to what? To some sickle-shaped cells. Then we were supposed to look at leukemia, which is the last one. So I'm just going to tell you that leukemia, this is what we get to call the cancer of the white blood cells. So leukemia is just the cancer of the white blood cells, where the patient makes up an abnormally high number of immature white blood cells. From the word cancer, you know that cancer is the abnormal growth of cells. So when cells get to grow abnormally, cancer develop. So that is what we did previously. But in this lesson, we are talking about the lymphatic system. So this one is a crucial part of the immune system, and it plays a significant role in maintaining fluid balance in the body. So before we even look at the components that get to make up the lymphatic system, I want you to understand this. So I want you to know that before we look at that, I want you to know that the lymphatic system, it gets to do what? I'll say it plays a what? A significant. It plays a significant. So I'll say it plays a significant role in what? In maintaining. In maintaining. So it plays a significant role in what? In maintaining what we get to call fluid. Maintaining fluid balance in the body. So it maintains fluid balance in the what? In the body. This is some major things that you need to understand. So I've told you to say that since this is part of the transportation that gets to be carried in animals, it has got what? Components. The same way the cardiovascular system had components, even this one gets to have components. One of the components that I want you to understand, so these are the components. One of the components is what we get to call a lymphatic system. So when we cut it short, we've got a lymph. You ask yourself, what is this same thing that is called a lymph? What is a lymph? You need to understand that this thing we are calling a lymph, in simple words, we are just calling it so it is some people say, okay, this is a lymph fluid. So I want you to understand this way. You discover that you, as we get to go forward, we'll say, okay, this is the lymph fluid. So what do we mean by a lymph fluid? So I want you to know that the lymphatic vessels, these lymphatic vessels, so when I say lymphatic vessels, I'm talking about a network of vessels that have blind end in the what? In the tissue cells. Those are what we get to call as the we are terming them as what? Lymphatic vessels. So when we say this is a lymph, we are talking about a what? We are talking about a clear fluid. This is a what? This is a clear fluid that does what? That circulates. So I'll say that circulates through what? That circulates through the lymphatic vessels. Through the what? Through the lymphatic what? Lymphatic vessels. Through the lymphatic vessels, which gets to contain white blood cells, especially lymphocytes. So we are saying that a lymph is a what? A clear fluid that circulates through the what? The lymphatic vessel, containing what? Containing, it is going, I'll say, so this word here is containing what we get to call white blood cells, containing white blood cells, especially what? Especially the lymphocyte. So I'll say especially what we get to call the what? What we get to call the lymphocyte. I guess we know the lymphocytes. What are these lymphocytes? You know that white blood cells are in two. They are what we call the phagocyte and the lymphocyte. These phagocytes get to fight diseases in the body or infections by engulfing of bacteria and digesting them. But when we go to the lymphocyte, these ones get to fight diseases in the body by producing antibodies and toxins. You know that an antibody, that one is a protein that gets to destroy germs. And when we are talking about antitoxins, we are talking about those proteins that get to do what? Neutralize. So them, they are doing what? They are neutralizing. So these are two things that you need to know. Those are lymphocytes. They get to fight diseases in the body by producing antitoxins and the antibodies. These ones I gave you, and I guess you know them. We are just revising through this. So this is just the lymphatic system that I want you to understand. So these are the components of this lymphatic system. One, it gets to have a lymph. What is a lymph? A lymph is a clear fluid that circulates through the what? The lymphatic vessels, containing white blood cells, especially the lymphocyte. So in our next lesson, I'll try to show you how questions do come in an exam. If you followed me clearly, previously I'd shown you how this lymphatic is all about, how some actions get to take place. I guess I was doing something on that. There's a question that I was discussing with you. So that's something that you have to understand. So it has got a lymph. These are just components of the what? Lymphatic system. Then we also have another component that another component that is made up of the lymphatic system. That is what we get to call the what? The lymphatic vessels. These ones that we've talked about, lymphatic what? Lymphatic vessels. You ask yourself, what are these lymphatic vessels? What are these lymphatic vessels? So lymphatic vessels, you just need to understand that this one is a network. It's just a what? This is just a network of vessels. A network of what? A network of vessels that transport what? That transport. They get to do what? They get to transport lymph. They get to transport lymph throughout this word here. Finish it. This is throughout the what? The body. So throughout the body. Throughout the body, this is what you have to understand. So similar to how blood vessels carry blood. So blood vessels are going to carry blood throughout the body. The lymphatic vessels are going to carry out lymph throughout the body. Have you seen? And I've told you that a lymph is a fluid that circulates through the lymphatic vessel. And it gets to contain what? It gets to contain white blood cells, specifically or especially the lymphocyte. This is what I'm telling you. I guess we are moving together and you're able to understand what I'm telling you. Aside knowing this, there are also what we get to call. So the third thing you need to understand, there's what we get to call a lymph nodes. So there's what we call a lymph node. So what is this thing called a lymph node? You need to understand that this is a small bean-shaped structure that filter lymph and it gets to contain some immune cells. So that is a lymph node. So we assume that it is a what? It is a small, then we say it has got a shape of a beans. So we say bean what? We say bean shaped. It is more like a beans. You know what a bean, from the word beans. Okay, this is beans. So have you seen how the shape is like that? So it has got a bean-shaped structure. So say it is a small bean-shaped what? Shaped structure. This is what I'm going to say. A bean-shaped structure that filter what? That gets to filter. That filter what? That filter lymph. It is going to filter the lymph now and contains what? And contains, this one gets to contain, so it contains what we get to call the immune cells. It is going to contain the what? It is going to contain the immune cells. So this one is also going to contain the what? The immune cells. The next question you need to have, what are the immune cells now? I guess some of you are hearing this for the first time. What are the immune cells? So the word, when I say immune cells, these immune cells get to play a crucial or a vital role in the body's defense against what? Infections and diseases. And the main types of the immune cells, one, there are those that get to have the lymphocytes and those that get to have the phagocytes. So these are the immune cells. From the word, when I say what is immunity? Immunity is the process by which the body is made resistant to certain diseases. So when I say immunity, or what is immunization? Immunization is a process by which the body is made resistant to certain diseases. So immunity is the ability of the body to resist certain diseases. So these are certain things that you are supposed to know. So I guess we are moving together. You are able to flow with me. So these are some things that you need to understand. You discover that these lymph nodes, they are distributed through the body and are concentrated in areas such as the neck. So that's where you get to find these on your neck. So I can say they are what? They are concentrated. So they are what? They are concentrated. So I'm going to say that they are concentrated on areas. So on what? On areas. I say on areas such as. On areas such as the what? Such as the neck. Aside the neck, we've got another area that we can call armpits. Have you seen? So I'll say ETC. So you get to find them in such areas. They are in the armpit and in the what? And in the neck. So this is what you have to know about the lymph nodes. These things are going to make sense when you see a question or when I give you an exam question here. That's when you are going to say, okay, so this is how these things are. So let's just make sure that we are able to understand these things and we are able to know them. Let us now move on to another part. So we move now to another part. So let us now move on to another part that is so important, another part that you have to understand. So I just want you to understand that whenever we are talking about these same things that we call, there's what we call a lymphatic capillaries. So these are the smallest vessels of the lymphatic system. So if I tell you what do we call the smallest vessels of the lymphatic system, they are called lymphatic capillaries. And these ones they get to be found in the small intestines. So these small vessels that I'm talking about, you discover that join up to form bigger vessels called the lymphatic vessels now. So the lymphatic joins up repeatedly to make bigger lymphatic vessels. So the biggest lymphatic vessel is what we get to call the thoracic, something like this. So so let me write it like this. So I'm telling you to say that the biggest, so the biggest, so this is something that is so important. So I'll say the biggest lymphatic, so I'll say the biggest lymphatic, so the biggest lymphatic vessel is called, so we get to call it the word thoracic, like this. This is how we get to call it duct. So this is the name that is given to it. I guess you people are able to know these things. You are able to understand. So I want you to know that, let me love this part so that we get to move together. But I guess you are able to understand this lymphatic system. So you just need to know these things, how they are used. When you encounter a question, that's when you are going to know, okay, so this is how they are. So I'm telling you to say that there are two prominent features found around the lymph vessels. So they are what we get to call two prominent. So I'll say two prominent two prominent I would say features. These are two prominent feature. How do we write the word feature? So feature like this, isn't it? So features found along the what? Along the lymphatic, so along the lymph vessel, along the lymph vessels. So these ones that I'm talking about are what? Are valves. We get to have valves, and we also get to have what we call the lymph nodes. So the lymph nodes and the valves are two prominent features that are found along the lymph vessels. What is the function of a valve? So the function of the valve, you have to understand that these valves keep the lymph flowing in one direction by preventing backflow. So they do what? These ones, they keep the what? They keep the lymph. So we say they keep the lymph flowing in one direction. Flowing in what? Flowing in one direction. Flowing in what? Flowing in one direction to prevent backflow. To prevent the what? To prevent the backflow. This is the function of these valves that are found along the what? Along the lymph vessels or the lymphatic vessels, just one and the same. These ones. So valves, when we were looking at the heart, I gave you the function of the valve. So what is the function of a valve? Is to prevent the backflow of blood. So in any valve, the function of a valve is to prevent the backflow. So here we cannot say to prevent the backflow of blood, no. But the what? The lymph. On the heart we say, okay, it prevents the backflow of blood. What is the function of this now, the lymph node? What is the function of this thing here? So you now discover that the flow of lymph is assisted by the concentration of muscles or that keeps the movement of the abdomen. So I guess you seen this and how important it is. But when we go to this one that is called the lymph node, this one, you now discover that one of its importance in the lymphatic system, it is that it adds the lymphocytes to the blood. So this one, it is going to do what? It is going to add the what? It is going to add the lymphocyte. The what? The lymphocytes to the blood. To the blood, it is going to add the lymphocyte to the what? To the blood. Aside knowing that, you also need to understand that this one, it drains excess tissue fluids and takes it back to the blood. So this is the function of the what? The function of the lymph node. So I've also told you another thing it does. It is that it does what? It drains. So you are going to discover that it drains what? It drains excess tissue fluid. Excess tissue fluid. It drains excess tissue fluids and takes it. So once it drains it, and it's going to take this back to what? It takes it back to the blood. Takes it back to the what? Takes it back to the blood. So this is how important a lymph node is. It adds the lymphocytes to the blood. It drains excess tissue fluids and takes it back to the blood. You also need to understand that it is going to produce and store the lymphocytes, the ones that gets to be added to the blood. So another one that you have to understand is that it stores and produces. So it is going to produce and store what? Lymphocytes. So lymphocytes. This is what you have to understand. These ones are added to the lymph and passes through on to the what? To the vein. So this is the purpose or the importance of this lymph, this thing that we are calling the lymph node. So questions in an exam will come. Give two importance of the lymph nodes. You get to explain them clearly. The same way I'm giving them. You also need to understand that these ones get to filter foreign bodies, bacteria and dead tissues from the lymph before it joins the blood. So what it is also going to do, aside these ones, the other thing that it is going to do is that it is going to do what? It is going to filter. Have you seen? It is going to do what? It is going to filter foreign bodies. It is going to filter foreign bodies, bacteria, and I will say and dead tissues and what? And dead tissues and dead tissues. I say and what? And dead tissues. So these are ones that are dead tissues from where? From the lymph. So I'll say from the what? From the lymph before it does what? Before it joins, before it does what? Before it joins the blood. So before it joins the blood, before it joins the blood. I guess you people are able to write down these notes. These are important notes that I'm giving here, and you just need to make sure that you are able to answer these things. So if you are given some questions to say, give two functions of the lymphatic system, you discover that one of the functions of the lymphatic system that we get to talk of, one is that it adds the lymphocytes to the blood, which I talked about, that gets to fall under those lymph nodes. Have you seen? So this is something that is so important. This is something that you have to understand. I guess you've seen this thing. This is something that is so simple, something that you are supposed to know. To summarize everything that we've talked about, you just need to understand that the function of the lymphatic system, or what it does, you know that it falls under transport in animals. So the functions of this, functions of the what? The function of the lymphatic system. The ones that I'm just from telling you, one is that it does what? It adds. So these ones, it does what? It adds, I'll say, it adds the lymphocytes. It adds the lymphocytes to the blood. Aside knowing that, you also need to know that it drains. All these functions that since they fall under the lymphatic system, so even those ones that I was talking about, you can just speak in because they are falling under the lymphatic system. It does what? It drains the excess tissue fluids. Excess what? Excess tissue fluids. Excess tissue fluids, and takes it and takes it back. Takes it back to the what? To the blood. These are some major functions of the lymphatic system. 1, 2. The third one is that it absorbs. It does what? It absorbs. So I'm going to say it absorbs and transports. It is going to absorb and transport what we get to call the fatty acids. So fatty acids, and I'll say fatty acids, we've got and I'll say and what? Glycosol. So I'll say glycosero what? Glycosero to the blood. So fatty acids glycosero to the blood. This is what you have to know. This is something that you need to understand under the lymphatic system. So now I will try to now give you some questions. You see how they come, and we are going to revise through some things together. So the work that we did, we are going to revise through it in our next lesson. So this is where we are going to end from. Thank you so much.